Question number 2, the Right Honourable Winston Peters.
This question is to the Prime Minister and asks, does he stand by all his statements?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, yes.
Supplementary question, the Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Does he stand by his statement in October 2011 that the proceeds of selling public assets like Air New Zealand and power generators will go, in his words, into a new fund called the Future Investment Fund, end of quotes?
The
Speaker.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Yes.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary question,
Can the Prime
Right
Minister,
Honourable Winston
can
Peters.
the Prime Minister confirm that his asset sales fund is being used to buy, and quote, I quote him, assets that are long-lived, are here in New Zealand and are owned by the Crown on behalf of all taxpayers, end of quotes?
The Right Honourable Winston, the Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, as a general characterisation, I'd say that's correct.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary question, the Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Well then, how does he reconcile his answer, the two answers he's just given, when the government's contribution to the Chinese-led offshore Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank, 140 million New Zealand, is coming from his Future Investment Fund?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, New Zealand's long been a participant in putting capital into bodies like this, and actually that's a very good thing to do because that collective capital will be used to build out infrastructure projects right across the Asian region, of which actually New Zealand companies may well also get an opportunity to participate in. The capital is used to support those projects, and one day it'll probably be returned to New Zealand taxpayers.
Supplementary question.
Right Honourable Winston Peters, supplementary question.
If that is the case, then why didn't the Prime Minister give the right answer the first two times? And more importantly, will he confirm to hard-working New Zealand taxpayers that another $561 million is now, by underwriting, having to be put against the Crown accounts for that purchase?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I don't think the member really understands basic accounting. I mean, to be blunt, we put money into ACC and the super fund, and that's also equity in those issues. We're putting equity into the Asian bank that's owned by New Zealand taxpayers that own that equity.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary question, the Right Honourable Winston.
So if that's true, why didn't he tell the public the truth when he made those statements about it being all here in New Zealand? And with provincial New Zealand, indeed much of New Zealand struggling, does he not feel that, like with charity, nigh on $700 million ought to be spent at home in this country?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, for a start off, there's no guarantee that the additional capital, if it's ever drawn on New Zealand, would actually come out of the Future Investment Fund. Actually, probably strong to suggest it probably wouldn't, given the fund is starting to run down, Mr Speaker. But this is an asset held on the New Zealand balance sheet. That is at home.
Any schools? Order. Question number 3, Jonathan Young.